Thanks so much for joining us on this Sunday. With the rules and timeline now set, the Liberal leadership race is beginning to take shape. CBC News has learned that former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney is expected to launch his bid this coming week. But several cabinet ministers now have decided they will not run, including just this morning, Employment Minister Stephen McKinnon, Transport Minister Anita Anand, Dominic LeBlanc, and Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly have all announced that they too will not run for the Liberal leadership. I spoke to Minister Joly about her decision and her upcoming visit to Washington. Minister Joly, thank you for making the time for us. Appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, Rosie.
You had been thinking about running for leadership, and now you are not. You've made that decision. And I wonder how much Donald Trump coming into office impacted your decision not to take a chance this time around.
Well, it was the main reason why I decided not to run, to become the first woman in charge of the Liberal Party of Canada. Because I had to ask myself two questions, Rosie. The first one is whether I was ready to become that first woman leader of the Liberal Party. And the answer was yes. And at the same time, I had to ask myself the question whether I was ready to step away from being the foreign minister at a crucial time between Canada and U.S. And the answer was no. And the reality is I can't do both. Mm-hmm. So based on that, I decided to put the country first and to make sure that we would be ready in terms of retaliation should the U.S. go ahead and impose its tariffs against Canada. And that's also why next week I'm heading to Washington, and this is my number one priority.
And I want to talk more about that for sure. Some people might say to you, Minister, well, like, we believe you, but given that it doesn't look like the Liberal Party has a hope in a chance at all of winning the next election, and you might be reduced to very few seats, that you also looked at it and said, I don't really want to sit as leader of the official opposition. I'm going to wait my turn to have a real chance at being Prime Minister for an extended period of time.
Well, first and foremost, I love organizing. I created a party when I ran to become the mayor of Montreal when I was 34. I was the co-chair of the campaign, which led to the Liberals winning last time in 2021. Mm-hmm. So I know organizing, and I know enough about elections that elections do matter, and the next election will be about the Canada-U.S. relations. And based on that, I think that we can do well. Mm. And meanwhile, I can definitely, by doing my job, make sure that my team, the Liberal team, is able to do well in the next election. So that's what I'll do. But fundamentally, I think that Canadians watching right now are anxious. When they hear that rhetoric about the 51st state by President-elect Trump, they're really, really anxious when it comes to imposing tariffs, which would lead to a lot of people having, an impact on their jobs. So, this is a really, really important moment. And Rosie, it's not happening in a month. It's not happening in 6 months. It's happening now. And so that's why I have to be there and basically just choose the country. And that's what I'm doing.
Right now, at any rate, I mean, this could change obviously quickly. We given you're not in, we don't have a candidate from Quebec. Minister Champagne has not yet made up his mind, we understand. I just wonder whether you think it's important to have a Quebecer in the race, whether that matters to the party.
Well, I think it's important for anybody running to be able to be bilingual. Right. And to be able to speak French, and to be able to debate in French, and to be able to understand Quebec. Sure. Because I think as Prime Minister, Rosie, you're tested on three things. First, the economy. Second, the Canada-U.S. relations. And third, national unity. And that includes the relationship with Quebec and, of course, all provinces. And so it's just part of your work as Prime Minister. And of course, I'll support any future leader in these three files, but these are three files that I know very well.
So how will you decide who you support and what kind of qualities are you looking for? Because this is also a moment where the party could say, we're going to go a little further to the right, we're going to come back to the center. It could change a little bit directionally as well.
Well, first and foremost, one step at a time. So the party came up with good rules. So that's good news. And now I'll see who is going to run. There's lots of speculation, but ultimately it is a choice. And so I look forward to having conversations with candidates. And of course, because we've built a strong organization, my team and I, we will have a say on who will be the person that will be at the realm of the Liberal Party of Canada. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure you've also had phone calls already. Have you from people interested in your support?
They've all reached out, but you know, nobody has concretely said that they were ready to go ahead and and run.
Let's talk a little bit about your trip to Washington. I know that you have a relationship with Lindsey Graham. You mentioned that on Friday. Who are you hoping to meet with? What are you hoping to do in this meeting this coming week?
So, Rosie, the strategy I've been really undertaking since the election of President Trump is to make sure that I was in contact with a lot of decision makers in DC and in Florida, because we know a lot of them are also in Florida or come from Florida, without necessarily talking about it. So you didn't hear me talking about the second trip I did to Washington in December, and also meeting with Secretary of State Rubio. I had good conversations with Tom Homan, the border czar, also with Howard Lutnick, the Secretary of Commerce, and also the Secretary of Energy, Doug Burgum. A lot of these people need to be confirmed. And so we've had preliminary discussions, and I'll continue these conversations with all of them, but my goal is to continue, sometimes quietly, sometimes much more overtly, to meet with key Republican decision makers. So that's what I'm doing next week, continuing to understand people around the president-elect, and at the same time deepening the relationship that I've already constructed and built, and working, of course, with the ambassador, Kirsten Hellman, who's doing a great job in Washington.
When I talk to people inside the Prime Minister's office, there is, I would say, some pessimism about how things are going to go. There is an understanding that it is very possible that these tariffs are going to be put in place. And I know Canada's preparing retaliatory tariffs. I wonder how much further the country should be prepared to go. Are we now at a point where export bans need to be discussed? What other things can the country do to protect itself from economic disaster?
Well, Rosie, for all those who are watching us right now, I think we have to be very realist, very pragmatic, and we have to be ready. Because something we can't do is not to take President-elect Trump on his word. Because when he says something, he usually does it. And so, based on that, we know that in the past, he has imposed tariffs on Canada. He did so on steel and aluminum. At the time, we did react, and we didn't retaliate dollar for dollar. Now, we have a plan. Our plan is based on two things. First, engagement. So we have a new border plan, very positive feedback from his team. We also are working on defense cooperation, military alliances. We're also working on energy and how we can work together. And at the same time, we're working on a retaliation plan. And I can't go into the details of that retaliation plan because I think it would be a bad strategy. But what I can tell you is everything is on the table.
I'll just end on this. Do you not think, though, that having a quote-unquote lame duck prime minister and a government that is nearing the end of its life cycle, that is not helpful to the country and to facing off the president-elect?
Well, what I will answer to you on that question is any politician, any leader in this country need to put their country first. And we need to be united because this is the biggest economic threat that we've been under in decades. And so based on that, this is not the time to play politics. This is not the time for conservatives to try to undermine and the government or score points against the Liberals because of petty politics. This is a time to be serving the country for the best interest of the country. That's what I'm doing personally, and that's what Pierre Poilievre needs to do, and that's what everybody in the country needs to do. This is time for Team Canada.
Okay, Minister Joly, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, Rosie.